Christians naturally believe there must be a God because the world had a beginning, and everything that had a beginning had a beginner. But the tough question to answer is how we know the world had a beginning. Maybe the world always existed. Famous agnostic Bertrand Russell presented this dilemma. Either the world had a beginning or it did not. If it did not need a cause, God. If it did, we can ask, who caused God? But if God has a cause, he is not God. In either case, we do not arrive at a first uncaused cause, God. The answer to this tough question is that it, too, asks a meaningless question. Who made God? To put it another way, it wrongly assumes that everything must have a cause, when what is claimed is that everything that had a beginning had a cause. This is quite a different matter. Of course, everything that had a beginning had a beginner. Nothing cannot make something, as Julie Andrews once sang, nothing came from nothing, nothing ever could. So God does not need a cause because he had no beginning. This being the case, we need only to show that the universe had a beginning, to show that there must have been a cause of it, that is, God. Two strong arguments will be offered as evidence that the universe had a beginning. One is from science, the second law of thermodynamics. The second is from philosophy, namely, the impossibility of an infinite number of moments. According to the second law of thermodynamics, the universe is running out of usable energy. But if the universe is running down, it cannot be eternal. Otherwise, it would have run down completely by now. While you can never run out of an unlimited amount of energy, it does not take forever to run out of a limited amount of energy. Hence, the universe must have had a beginning. To illustrate, every car has a limited amount of energy, gas. That is why we have to refuel from time to time, more often than we like. If we had an unlimited, that is, infinitely large gas tank, we would never have to stop for gas again. The fact that we have to refill shows that it was filled up to begin with. Or, to use another example, an old clock that gradually unwinds and has to be rewound would not unwind unless it had been wound up to begin with. In short, the universe had a beginning, and whatever had a beginning must have had a beginner. Therefore, the universe must have had a beginner, God. Some have speculated that the universe is self-winding or self-rebounding, but this position is exactly that, pure speculation, without any real evidence. In fact, it is contrary to the second law of thermodynamics. For even if the universe were rebounding, like a bouncing ball in reverse, it would gradually peter out. There is simply no observational evidence that the universe is self-winding. Even agnostic astronomers like Robert Jastrow have pointed out, once hydrogen has been burned within that star and converted to heavier elements, it can never be restored to its original state. Thus, minute by minute and year by year, as hydrogen is used up in stars, the supply of this element grows smaller. If the overall amount of actual energy stays the same, but the universe is running out of usable energy, it has never had an infinite amount. For an infinite amount of energy can never run down. This would mean that the universe could not have existed forever in the past. It must have had a beginning. Or, to put it another way, according to the second law, since the universe is getting more and more disordered, it cannot be eternal. Otherwise it would be totally disordered, by now, which it is not. So it must have had a beginning, one that was highly ordered. A second argument that the universe had a beginning, and hence a beginner, comes from philosophy. It argues that there could not have been an infinite number of moments before today. Otherwise today never would have come, which it has. This is because, by definition, an infinite can never be traversed. It has no end or beginning. But since the moments before today have been traversed, that is, we have arrived at today, it follows that there must only have been a finite, limited number of moments before today. That is, time had a beginning. But if the space-time universe had a beginning, it must have been caused to come into existence. This cause of everything else that exists is called God. Even the great skeptic, David Hume, held both premises of this argument for God. What is more, Hume himself never denied that things have a cause for their existence. He wrote, "I never asserted so absurd a proposition as that anything might arise without a cause." He also said that it was absurd to believe that there were an infinite number of moments. The temporal world has a beginning, An infinite number of real parts of time, passing in succession and exhausted one after another, appears so evident a contradiction that no man, one should think, whose judgment is not corrupted instead of being improved by the sciences, would ever be able to admit it. Now, if both of these premises are true, it follows that there must have been a creator of the space-time universe we call the cosmos. That is, God exists.